Well, we're at the end of the summer's break at Father's house, and I'm back in the office, and uh, I'm back with my podcasts and just some of the thoughts that I have as I enter into Shabbat myself, and some of the things that I'm praying about during the week and praying for regarding Shabbat. And um, one of the things that has been on my mind and of great concern to me at Father's house is the issue of Brexit, and not because of what's happening in the nation, but the way that we respond to what's happening in the nation. I know we're all praying really hard, and the prayer meeting this morning, Friday morning prayer meeting, I'm sure that those who were praying there this morning will have been concerned with Brexit. I know we had a leaders meeting yesterday, and we prayed a lot about the Brexit situation in the UK and how Mr. Johnson is dealing with it, whether you think that's good or bad. We're praying that we will come out of Europe, because that's the will of the people, and we believe spiritually that's how we need to move forward in this nation. But I'm concerned that we as Christians, as believers in Yeshua and followers of him, that we deal correctly with this situation. And of course, we need to pray for our leaders. We need to pray for those in government, and we need to pray for those who are trying to steer a course with the Brexit situation, whether it's for or against, because we need to pray for their salvation. We need to pray for what's happening in their lives as well. If good or bad, we need to pray, if it's bad, that God will show them the light and not the darkness that we see many of our leaders working in. So we need to look at the way that we speak about them, and certainly when we use social media, we need to express our concerns with love and not with bitterness. Ephesians 4:31-32 says, "Put away from all your bitterness and wrath and anger and wrangling and slander, together with all malice. And be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ has forgiven you." Now, I know that is for the way that we should live as believers amongst each other. There should be no bitterness and wrath and anger, and certainly no slander or wrangling or malice. And we should be tender-hearted towards one another. But we need also to show others outside of our spiritual family how we live. I spoke last Shabbat about a group of Sabbath keepers in the 13th century Europe, the Waldenseans, and how they lived, and they lived with integrity, and they showed the people around them how God wanted them to live, and that drew people to them. Now, we today aren't seen very often by people from outside in regard to the way that we live, but we're seen on social media as to the way that we express our thoughts about what we believe and what is happening in the nation. And I believe with all my heart that we need to do that with a tender heart, and not express our thoughts with bitterness and with wrath and anger, and certainly not with slander and malice, because it's the people outside of our circle that look upon us as believers, and they discern and judge us really as to how we are as believers and what we practice as believers. And we need to practice love, respect. We need to practice wisdom, which God gives us. We need to practice a way of speaking that is in love, so that those people on the outside can actually see that we are followers of the true living God, and our lifestyle and the way we carry out our discipleship with God is in a godly manner, and a manner which expresses to others that God is a God of love and not a God of hatred. Sometimes, especially on social media, we see and read expressions of hatred towards those who don't agree with us. And you know, there are a lot of people who don't agree with us. There are a lot of people who don't agree with Brexit. There's a huge amount of people who are expressing their hatred towards Boris Johnson. We don't have to fall in line with any of that at all. We need to be a people who don't express hatred. We shouldn't have hatred in our heart. We need to be a people who are acting in integrity. So as we move forward with this Brexit debate, and as we get closer to the 31st of October, let's all try and be wise as to how we act and how we respond to what's happening. And maybe you want to do that by writing to your MP or writing on social media about how you feel, because that would draw other people. But we need to do it with love, and we need to do it without bitterness and anger. And we need people to see that we are godly people and that we do things in God's ways with love and with compassion, but with wisdom. And if we can express godly wisdom on social media, particularly in these times where there is very little wisdom in government and in parliaments and in the leadership of our country, whether it's in the opposition or whatever, then we will draw people not only to the argument that we are trying to put out, but also draw people to God. We can't draw people to God by speaking with bitterness and wrangling. And we can't draw people to God if we have malice in our heart. But we can draw people to God if we do things in His way and say things in the way that will show people outside that the wisdom of God is far greater than the wisdom of man. So I want to thank you for listening again, and to hold on to your views, whatever they are, but help others, if we can, to express their views in a godly way, in the way that we will express our views in a godly way, and therefore draw all people to the God in heaven, who has the power to choose leaders, who has the power to change things, so that we will give Him glory. So Shabbat Shalom, Mike Fryer.